Wolfe and Brennan in the morning.
And we're back once again. Today we're going to be reviewing social psychology. I'm Wolfe, and as always, I'm joined by Brennan.
Hello.
Okay, so before we get into the episode recap, we have an Old White Man Does story.
Yes, so this one actually happened today. So we have a resident who, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say his exact age, so I'm just going to say he's over 100.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I was in the nurse's station working on the computer system, and that's about a 10-minute job for what I was working on. And the entire time, he's sitting in there going, oh, just over and over. So I eventually have to get up before I'm completely done and just go work on something else.
Yeah.
And then as I was coming back, I saw him walking down the hallway, pushing his wheelchair that he's supposed to be in.
What?
Yeah, he's supposed to be in the wheelchair, but he's pushing it, like walking behind it and pushing it. But like what was really sweet is he was talking to his wife who has passed years ago, but in his mind he was pushing his wife down the hallway.
Aw,
it was really sweet.
Cute and sad.
Yeah, but yeah. So that's Old White Man Does for today. Just the moaning and pushing his wife down the hallway.
Oh, man. Over 100, that is impressive.
Yeah, and like the only thing really wrong with him is his mental state. Like he's still pretty fit for how old he is.
Wow.
Nurses have said he has to be bound to the wheelchair, but he could walk without it, just maybe a cane.
Yeah.
But for his safety,
Wheelchair makes sense.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a nice one. Okay,
Yeah.
So the recap for today's episode, Jeff avoids walking to class with Shirley and instead opting to walk with Britta where he meets Vaughn. Jeff gets jealous. Pierce gets a set of earnoculars so he can hear things from far away. Annie joins Professor Duncan's psych lab and recruits Abed and Troy to participate in the lab. Jeff and Shirley end up walking together after all. And the two of them end up bonding over gossiping about others in the study group and at the school in general, mainly Vaughn and Britta. And Pierce a little bit, too. Jeff finds out that Britta and Vaughn are together, and he tries to be a good friend to Britta and not make fun of him, but Shirley turns him to the dark side, and they once again gossip together about Vaughn. The study never begins. The study, like the psych study, never begins, which drives Troy to break down and leave the study, after numerous others have, of course. And Abed remains for 26 straight hours. If you forget when Troy left, it was after hour 4.
Yeah.
And then after that, Vaughn meets the rest of the study group and realizes they're all laughing at his mannerisms and a poem he wrote for Britta that Pierce happened to be reading because Jeff printed it out and shared it with the study group. Vaughn leaves, Britta gets upset with Jeff for sharing the poem, Shirley and Jeff stop hanging out, Britta and Jeff make up, Annie gives Abed a present to make up, and Pierce gets rid of his earnoculars. So yeah, that's the episode.
Yeah.
So I have a couple general notes. So the B plot, which I would assume in this case is Annie doing the study, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It wraps up fairly quickly compared to other episodes, like having the B plot. I mean, aside from like the resolution does come a bit later, but kind of like the main end of the arc when Abed finally leaves the study ends pretty early on in the episode, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Like I'd say about the halfway point. And of course they resolve things later in the episode. Because I think the main focus is on the A plot this episode, which is Jeff and Shirley bonding and Jeff having to navigate Britta being with someone else.
Yeah. The commentary on the DVD mentioned that this is like the beginning, or maybe it's in the middle, I forget, of Jeff. Like each episode is getting Jeff close to one character, and like that character brings out the humanity and caring side of him.
Yeah.
So like this is Shirley's episode, obviously. He gets close to Shirley, and in the process kind of gets closer to Britta by making up with her.
Yeah.
But this is like Shirley's and Jeff's episode, and I believe last week was like Jeff and Abed's episode, and then the Spanish 101 was Jeff and Pierce's episode. So like it's slowly making him closer to each member of the group, one episode at a time.
That's really neat. I never noticed that, actually.
Yeah. I believe it was Dan Harmon on the commentary that mentioned that.
Oh, genius.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now I appreciate this episode a little more.
Yeah.
I did really like seeing the pairing of Jeff and Shirley. Like, it doesn't really happen often in the show, but they work really well together, surprisingly.
Yeah, they do. This is one of the few episodes where they are like the main points, the two of them together.
Yeah.
And every time it brings out, with Jeff at least, negative side.
It brings out Shirley's negative side, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it just brings out the worst in both of them because...
Yeah, they're like a toxic friendship.
Yeah, there's like later
Yeah.
episodes where their friendship is still like kind of like toxic in some ways, and like they just kind of bring out the worst in each other.
Yeah.
Which is funny because in general the study group is bringing out the best in Jeff.
Yeah.
Except when he's one-on-one with Shirley.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose if he's one-on-one with Pierce too, but that's just because he's angry.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that would bring out the worst in anyone.
Yeah.
We've all had those partners in high school growing up.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed about this episode is that for the first time since the pilot, like, every main member of the study group has had a chance to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't seem like any of them were really backseaters this episode.
Well, Abed kind of was.
I mean, a little bit, but he also was kind of, like, driving part of the B-plot for a bit.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. Different episode.
Yeah, he was just sitting there in silence, kind of, like, keeping them.
Yeah.
I think, like, maybe Troy got the least screen time. Troy or Pierce is my guess.
Yeah, one of the two.
Yeah, but even then, like, they still, like, got to shine and they have memorable moments.
Mm-hmm.
Because unlike in Spanish 101, I don't really remember anything too memorable about Abed in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Last episode, I don't really remember anything about Shirley or Annie. But this episode is unique. I think there's like moments for each character, which is great, I think. That they're able to do that and have that balance, and it feels natural for the first time, like, since the pilot that they've done this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it happens more and more throughout the show, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah. They get better at balancing all seven of them.
Yeah.
And if not, like, one of the seven, whoever has least screen time, still has a memorable moment.
Yeah.
Like, they're getting stronger with their writing. We saw that with last episode for sure.
Yeah. I remember in the commentary they were talking often about how, like, early on they were struggling to, like, write a script for the 22 minutes they were allotted.
Yeah.
And so they'd have to cut a lot. And then they mentioned, like, by the end of by, like, middle of season 2 or so, I believe they said, they could just, like, write it and it'd be done. And they wouldn't have to cut anything because they had the timing down.
Yeah. Which is interesting because, speaking of, like, cutting stuff out, so the DVD and the broadcast had two different versions of this episode. Like, the broadcast version was on Hulu, is on Hulu currently, but I did just find out today, sadly, they are taking Community off of Hulu. In 7 days, I saw the little banner on it, so
it'll just be on Peacock then.
Just Peacock, so I'm really glad we both got those DVD sets.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so the version that's on Hulu currently, if you're listening to this, it's no longer on there.
Yeah.
And the version that was on Netflix, they had the broadcast version, which, unlike the pilot, the broadcast version for this episode was longer.
Mm-hmm.
And the DVD version was cut down. So there's some, like, Chang has this whole spiel at the beginning of the episode where he's, like, talking about his anonymous feedback forms and how one person's was very racist, turned out to be Annie's, and how hers was, like, she dotted her I's with little circles. That's not in the DVD version.
Yeah, it's not.
Because I was watching the DVD version for today, and I've seen the show multiple times on Hulu, and I was like, wait a minute, what happened? Where's that
Another
moment?
part that, like, they changed, which makes me a bit upset, because it was funnier in the broadcast version, where during the, like, experiment, you know, when Chang loses it and storms out,
Yeah.
Duncan goes, "Houston, we have an idiot."
Oh my
And,
gosh.
like, that made me laugh every time. And on the DVD version, it just says Duncan saying, "And we're off."
Oh
And
my
gosh. Yeah,
gosh.
like, they swapped out one of my favorite jokes from early season 1.
Oh man. That's
and made it
unfortunate.
not funny.
That didn't cross my mind whenever I
Yeah.
saw it. I can't believe I forgot about that.
Yeah, like, I had to do some research, because, like, did I just imagine him saying, "Houston, we have an idiot"? Or is that, like, in a later episode? No, it's during this one, and they just changed it.
Yeah, like, that's unfortunate. That's such a
Yeah.
good joke. The other one that they cut from Duncan was where, like, he says that, like, he's not allowed to date students to Annie because he assumes that's what she's wanting. And then he says, "I know, it disappoints me because, like, you're an 8, which is a British 10.
Yeah, that was a good line.
And they cut that from the
Yeah.
DVD version too. Like,
Yeah.
why did they need to edit it down for the DVD is what I'm wondering.
That is odd. Because I remember them saying in the commentary that, like, the network allowed them a few extra minutes for this episode. That's why the network one was longer.
Interesting. But why didn't they just make it the same as the DVD? Like, why didn't they just make the broadcasted DVD the same?
I don't know. It kind of sucks.
Because it's, as far as I know, it's only the pilot and this episode that have different versions.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate, though.
They should really, like, put in the bonus features, like, on the DVD, the two different episodes, you know?
Yeah, they should. They really should.
But, oh, well.
Oh, speaking of Duncan, this is the first time we see him since the pilot, I just realized.
Yeah.
He has made his triumphant return after being set up as a major character in the pilot, being absent the last 2 episodes, has returned as a supporting role.
Yeah. I think he, like, started filming something else. It might be at this point in the show or another point in the show where he just, like, that's one of the reasons he became a background character, I think.
Yeah.
I could be mistaken, but I remember hearing something about that at some point.
He wasn't around in season 4 at all.
Mm-hmm.
Or 6.
Yeah, well, lucky for him to miss the gas leak.
Yeah. He might not have been in season 3 either. Because he comes back in season 5 and they make an observation that he's come back.
Yeah.
But that's getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, while we're talking about Duncan, I have this funny thing that I saw. Like, I think this was like the first thing I laughed at this episode on this rewatch. Because they cut out Chang's whole thing and Duncan's little thing. When Annie says that, like, she got those pills to help her focus, but it actually made her lose her scholarship and virginity. That, like, it's just so out of nowhere. Like, she's like, oh, instead, like, you would, like, when someone's talking about negative side effects of pills, you're gonna think, like, oh, they made me drowsy, they made me anxious, they made me, like, I don't know, like, other normal symptoms. And she comes out with losing her scholarship and virginity instead.
Yeah.
As if those are, like, symptoms of those pills. That was a good one, I thought.
Yeah.
And Duncan's confidence is something else in this episode, because he's not normally this confident. But this time, he's very much like, he presumes that Annie's, like, trying to get in his pants. But that's not at all what she wants, and he just assumes, or maybe it's him kind of wanting her to, because she is an attractive woman, conventionally speaking, and so, like, it makes sense for Duncan to want her to want him in that way, but she does not. So I don't know if it's wishful thinking or overconfidence in this case. Maybe a bit of both.
Yeah, I was going to say, or a bit of both.
Yeah.
So when Duncan, staying on the Duncan train.
Yes, Duncan train.
At the end of the episode, when Garrett, we don't know his name at this point, but, like, later on you'll get to know the character as Garrett leaves the study and says, I have class I have to go to and all that. And Duncan says, well, get out then, go kill John Lennon again, you loser. So that's actually a reference to how similar Garrett looks to Mark David Chapman, the guy who killed John Lennon.
Yeah.
Like, it's eerie how similar they look.
Really? Okay, I need to look up a picture of Mark David Chapman then.
It's a bit eerie.
I think he's still alive, actually.
I'm not sure.
I think he, like, yeah, he's still around. 68 years old. I think he, like, rehabilitated her. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, because, well, first it showed me, like, a more recent photo, and I'm like, kind of. But then, like, I see, like, his, like, original mugshot.
Yeah.
With the and he had the same glasses, too.
Yeah, the mugshot is what like, it's eerie.
That, holy crap, oh my gosh. Yeah, I always figured the joke was about, like, oh, like, he probably looks like this guy, or, like, has some similarities, but I never realized.
I didn't think it was gonna be that similar.
That's wild.
Yeah, they look like they could be twins.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then another just funny little thing is, like, during Duncan's freak out about Abed disproving the Duncan principle.
Yeah.
Abed just had a higher breaking point than Duncan, so Duncan proved the Duncan principle by having his little tantrum.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true, even though he said that he was disproving the Duncan principle. It's like, no, you just proved the Duncan principle for yourself, which...
Abed just had a higher breaking point.
It's true, and he was too proud to admit it.
Yep.
Another funny moment. This is going back earlier in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
This is whenever Pierce brings his mail to campus for some odd reason.
I feel like Pierce knows exactly what it is, but he wanted to open it in front of his friends to make himself feel important.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's like, oh, let's check the mail today. And then he gets his ear binoculars and he's like, this gives me sonic hearing. Then Abed walks up and he's like, all hearing is sonic. And Pierce goes, what? That's just a fun exchange.
Yeah.
But of course, like, Abed just comes in, like, all hearing sonic, like, just straight face, like, just to, like, correct Pierce. Mm-hmm. Or at least be right.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something, like, I've done in the past. I've dialed it back now, but it's something where if I noticed someone was wrong about something, I would always point it out.
Yep.
Not necessarily to, like, make fun of them or make them feel bad about it, but because I was like, that's just false.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe that's a trait of autism, too.
I mean, I did the exact same thing and had to learn to not do that. So I feel like it is.
Yeah.
People with autism are very literal and the world is black and white. The gray in the world is difficult for us to see.
Yeah.
And so, like, you're either right or you're wrong. And a lot of the times, if we know something is right, we want to correct people. And not out of anything, like, not out of spite or anything.
No.
Just, like, you're wrong. Here's the correct answer. It's not to be rude. It's just, we're in our own way, we're trying to help.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah. It doesn't come across that way is where we struggle.
Yeah, and that's something we have to work on. Either we try to point it out more gently, or we just don't point it out at all.
Yeah.
And it's part of what makes socializing and talking to other people, like, it is a strategy game for sure for people with autism.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially those who, I know the terms high functioning, low functioning are kind of outdated now, but say, like, the people who would be considered high functioning definitely have, like, a harder time playing that strategy game than others, versus the people who are lower functioning may not even know that they, quote unquote, need to play a, like, strategy game to socialize. Because you really shouldn't have to, like, like, socializing, you should just be able to talk to people. You shouldn't feel like it's strategy.
I've always said that, partially joking but also partially serious, that the neurodivergents who don't do body language are the evolution of humanity. Because how many times has body language been misinterpreted by neurotypicals, which caused a fight?
Yeah.
We threw it out the window, and for us, it makes life easier not caring about body language.
Yeah.
Now, like, when you're in a conversation with neurotypicals, for example, my boss is very much into reading body language and is very sensitive to that. So, like, if I'm ever having a conversation with her, I have to be very careful on how my body is portraying because I don't mean anything, but, like, my most comfortable position is crossing my arms, right? To her, that's saying you're upset, you're not listening to me, you're angry, when in reality, it's just the most comfortable thing for me to do. And so, like, we had a big misunderstanding about that at one point. It was, I had a hard time explaining, no, I'm not upset or anything. I struggle with body language, but.
Yeah. And actually, I had that happen the other day, too. Actually, it was yesterday. I went to the bank. I am, like, switching banks and stuff because the other one's just more convenient. So I was going to the one to close my account, and as I was waiting in line, I kept crossing my arms, and I realized, oh, shoot, this is going to make me look mad, especially because of the reason why I'm going in is to close this account, right? And so I realized, I kept having to be like, no, I can't cross my arms right now. I don't want them to think I'm mad. And then my arms kept going back to cross.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the two positions for me are my arms are crossed or they're shoved in my pockets to stop me from crossing my arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm walking, it's not comfortable to, like, cross my arms.
No. Yeah. But if you're just standing around waiting for something or even just sitting down, the most comfortable.
Yeah.
But everyone assumes that you're angry when you do that.
Yeah, or, like, you don't want to be there or you're bored or something like that. And I'm like, no, this is just what feels comfortable.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's part of why we relate to Abed so much, and other characters who are kind of like, for lack of a better term, like an alien visiting Earth.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of, so I got to go off on a little tangent here.
Yes.
Speaking of like autism and all that, as we all know, or maybe not all of us, but you and me, Wolf, we know,
Yeah.
that this month was Autism Awareness Month.
Yeah.
My small group had an autism awareness event, and
Yeah.
for the first time in my life, I felt uncomfortable sharing I was on the spectrum
Yikes.
at an autism awareness thing.
That is ironic.
It
And
was
for
one
reference,
of-
we're recording in April. We're recording
Yeah.
this in April during Autism Awareness
It
Month.
was very entertaining. I won't go into more details, but yeah, it was. I found that hilarious. But yeah,
Yeah. There's a time and a place, and that, from what you told me earlier, that sounds like it was not the time and place at all.
no, it was great. So
Yeah.
it was a very. I had a blast because I'm one of those people who enjoy train wrecks.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun.
Well, I guess you got that out of it, so that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was saying with how both of us relate to Abed, and I don't know, have you watched Doctor Who before?
I've seen a few episodes that I remember when I was really young. I watched the episode where the mannequins come to life.
Yeah, yeah.
And, like I had nightmares and I never watched it again.
That's fair.
So now that I'm older, I might watch it. But like I think I saw it when I was like 8.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
So,
it's like
yeah.
me with Harry Potter. I got scared because like the aunt or whoever was visiting like inflated and flew away, and that horrified me as a kid. And Aunt Marge, and I refused to watch Harry Potter for years after that.
That's
but
great.
anyway, like a lot of people with autism, myself included, love Doctor Who, and they relate to the Doctor because he's an alien on a person's world, and he doesn't get a lot of those social cues either, or body language and stuff, and he'll just like bluntly say that he's right and like just tell people that they're wrong.
Yeah.
Kind of like what we were talking about, which, and I think that's also why Grand Admiral Thrawn from Star Wars is one of my favorite if not my favorite character in Star Wars, because he is always in strategy mode. Whether he's with people or not, he's always like strategizing, and especially if you read the books, he doesn't always understand the politics of the Star Wars world, and has to have people explain it to him.
The whole thing is like he doesn't do politics, which is why he's so successful. Like
Yes.
I've been reading through him right now, and like the only thing that like holds him back is his like the politics of his world, or his like subordinates not following his orders.
Yeah.
Because they think they know better, and then it's just a disaster. Like in Rebels, there were so many times where he would have won if not for his admirals disobeying.
Yes. Yeah. Or the like scenarios that he didn't predict, like the Bendu coming in and fucking shit up.
Yeah. Or spoiler alert for Rebels, but Ezra calling in the
Purrgil.
Purrgil.
Yeah. Yep. So I almost wonder, like, Thrawn is almost a little too relatable for me in that sense. Like, whenever I was because I can't really do reading much, it makes me sleepy because I had to read a lot in college, and that made me sleepy, so I only do audiobooks. And so when I was listening to the audiobook, I was like, man, Thrawn is such a cool character. Like, I feel like I see myself in this character. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I think that's why we relate to, like, these characters like Abed, the Doctor, Thrawn so much, because they are, like, these people who do not necessarily fit into the conventional, like, idea of a person for society.
Yeah.
And they also don't really fit into the conventional image of what a disabled person is. But yeah, that was a tangent. I have a note that I want to share. This was just a funny moment. We learned more about Troy in this, and I know this was like the first thing before we started recording, Brennan told me this was like the first thing on his notes, but that Troy likes butt stuff.
Yeah. he asking if they did stuff to his butt, then asking if they got paid more if they did stuff to his butt, and then deciding he wanted to help out anyway. No matter what.
But then later in the episode, he's like, "You promised butt stuff," as he's like crawling out of the room, and I'm like, "What? No, she didn't."
Yeah, and there's during the DVD commentary, I think they mentioned that this was during Donald Glover's like butt humor phase.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
A lot of his butt jokes throughout the show is like improvised.
Nice.
Like his exit from the room, that was completely improvised. The script just said Donald freaks out. So That crawl, all of it was just improvised, and it was gold.
Yes. Donald Glover's improvisation is always gold, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What other funny moments do I have? I don't know.
Little trivia thing here real quick before we move on to funny moments and quotes.
Yeah.
But Vaughn's tiny nipples, those are actually fake prosthetics. He doesn't actually have tiny nipples.
Yeah, you can kind of tell, like a little bit.
Yeah. But there's a story of one of the actors walking into the makeup department, and they're just like nipples on the, like a bunch of nipples on the table.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's wild. But yeah. This other thing. So going back to cutting episodes, my notes kind of jump around a lot. I need to start organizing these, but they also cut out in the DVD version, at least I'm 90% sure they did because I just watched it today. Whenever Abed says he's like going to go see the Indiana Jones movies in theaters, he's looking forward to the first three. In the DVD version, it goes straight to I even got a whip. Mm-hmm. In the broadcast version, he first talks about how not necessarily looking forward to the fourth one because it blows. Mm-hmm. They cut that part of the line out in the DVD version.
They have that in the second part when Annie buys him the gift.
Yeah, and like
they both go and it blows.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
because it's supposed to be a callback to when Abed said it blows.
Yeah.
Before they did the study, but in the DVD version they cut out the first time he says it. So it's like, how is Annie supposed to know that he was going to say that?
I didn't know that, so the way my brain looked at it was Annie recognizes that the fourth one sucks, and she knows Abed's a huge fan, so she would assume that he would think the fourth one sucks as well.
Yeah.
So that was just her being happy she guessed right.
No, it was a callback.
That's how my brain looked at it, but the callback makes more sense.
Yeah, which it is kind of funny because I'm a fan of Indiana Jones myself. I'm not like a diehard fan or anything. But I actually think the fourth one is better than the second.
Which one was the fourth one?
The fourth one was Crystal Skull, and the second one was Temple of Doom.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
it's been a long time since I've seen the Indiana Jones movie, so I'm not gonna.
I just saw them last year.
But okay.
Yeah, I just saw them last year, and I think it was the first time I'd seen scenes from Last Crusade, and I'd seen clips from Crystal Skull. It was the first time I had seen either of those in its full capacity, but I had seen Raiders and Temple of Doom before. And Temple of Doom, like, I think why it doesn't work well for me is because it's pretty much just a collection of the stuff they had to cut from Raiders. Like, there are several bits that they had in the original script for Raiders that they had to scrap to make it make sense, and because they couldn't fit anything, and then for the sequel they just decided to use what they scrapped. But more than that, it just has inconsistencies with the first, because like it's technically a prequel to Raiders, and Indiana Jones in Raiders of course doesn't believe in like spiritual stuff or like religious things, and is like, it's all just like fake, it's fiction. But in Temple of Doom he clearly sees magic happening. Then go to Raiders, which technically is later in the franchise. He doesn't believe in that stuff anymore. So that kind of bothered me a bit. And I think there's some other inconsistencies too, but that's a whole other tangent. And the fourth one's not the best either, but I think it's better than what a lot of people give it credit for.
What was the newest one?
The newest one was Dial of Destiny, and that one I have not seen yet.
I saw it. Yikes.
I've heard a lot of things.
Yeah, yikes.
Yeah, I still want to see that, like just to like know and have an opinion for myself, because I'm not.
I think I just watched it on. Was it Disney Plus that it's on?
It would be Disney Plus, yeah.
Yeah, I watched it on Disney Plus because I didn't want to go to the theaters and give it money.
Fair enough. I almost went to the theaters to see it.
I heard a rumor that, and I was like, even if this is true, great. If not, great. The rumor was that like Dial of Destiny was Kathleen Kennedy's last ditch effort at like helping with Star Wars for some reason. And so in my mind I was like, you know what? I'm going to let this crash and burn and not give it any of my money because I want Dave Filoni in charge.
Yeah.
That was my
Dave
reasoning.
Filoni's kind of in charge of Star Wars now.
Yeah, he
Like,
is now. Yeah.
He's like the creative person, basically. Like,
Yeah.
Kathleen Kennedy doesn't do anything creative
like,
that
she
I
had-
know of. Like,
she
she
had,
just...
overstepped. She's the reason they brought Grogu back into Mandalorian. And
I mean, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like, other executives at Disney were like, you gotta bring back Grogu.
to me, it didn't make any sense. It was, like, they did it because he makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, like, if story-wise, to me, it didn't really seem to make sense, because it's what he wanted to go train.
Yeah.
And it just, it was weird.
Yeah.
And, like, if you don't watch the Book of Boba Fett, Grogu just reappears.
Well, they have a recap on Disney Plus.
Okay, they do? Sweet.
Yeah, they have
I've
a
only seen it
recap.
once, because Book of Boba Fett was miserable.
Yeah.
They butchered it, and it sucked.
I was actually thinking about that earlier today, and I was like,
Yeah.
there was a lot of cool stuff they introduced in that show.
The Power Rangers.
The Vespas.
That was funny.
Yeah. Well, like, there was a lot of cool stuff.
I
though,
felt
right?
like the Power Ranger team was more of a Coruscant thing than a Tatooine thing, you know?
That makes sense. That's fair. That's valid. I'll give you that. But
Like, of all places for that stuff to be happening, like the tech enhancements and all that, Tatooine is not the place for that. Tatooine is the equivalent of, like, Eastern Kentucky.
that's fair. But, like, the Tuscans, like, integrating some of, like, Tamora Morrison's culture, the Maori culture from New Zealand,
That was
incorporating
cool.
some of that was cool.
I
Black
really like that.
Chrysanthemum was from the comics was cool. Mm-hmm. That was
having
neat.
Having the Tusken Raiders use actual sign language was really cool.
That was cool
like-
too, and I kind of liked the bar as well.
A lot of the times in media, they don't use actual, like, sign language. Like, they just make hand signals and just kind of make it up.
Yeah,
But the Mandalorian actually, like, had actual ASL conversations, which is really cool.
yeah, that is awesome. And honestly, the last episode of Book of Boba Fett was kind of badass. Like, despite what led up to it, like it was a bit of a jumbled mess. But the finale was probably my favorite episode of that series. Like, getting to see Boba Fett be a badass, ride the Rancor, Cad Bane. Although he looked a little weird, like, it was still cool to see him in live action, and just that whole, like, finale was fantastic. Like,
Yeah, and then the
rest of the
opposite.
show, like,
Yeah, like, that was my favorite episode, the finale.
yeah.
And the exact opposite happened. The first episode of Kenobi was my favorite, and the rest of it just went downhill.
Interesting. I really liked the finale of Kenobi as well. There were parts that I had issues with, but
Yeah.
getting to see Vader and Obi-Wan duel was really awesome.
Yeah. All right.
We are way off
We
topic
need to get
now.
back on topic, yeah.
Yeah. How did we even get down that road?
I'm not sure.
Oh, the Indiana Jones stuff. Yeah,
yes.
that's right.
Yeah, because Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford, Han Solo.
Yeah, Lucasfilm, all that. But yeah,
I guess we're just on funny moments now.
yeah, just like some things we noticed. When
Yeah.
Pierce is eavesdropping on Britta, Jeff, and Vaughn, and he's just telling the others Britta's making the switch to green tea. Instead of, like, being like, dude, you're eavesdropping, like, what the fuck are you doing? They're just like, oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, Pierce, what are you doing? You can't, like, spy on people's conversations. I mean, we eavesdrop all the time, but still, like, people, I think it's natural to eavesdrop. Like, you're just out of curiosity, but, like, to get a device to do that, and then to, like, go and tell other people what's going on, I'm like, I feel like they'd have a stronger reaction than that, but that also could just be me.
Yeah.
And then during the psych study, whenever Ian's talking about the Duncan principle and all the students are, like, writing down, he's like, oh, I gotta write this down too. Like,
That was really funny.
it kind of shows his, like, incompetency as a professor and, like, a professional in general. Like, we kind of start to see more of, like, oh yeah, like, he's not great at this, is he?
It's, I mean, it's like one of my favorite moments of the show, or this episode, is when Chang, like, loses it immediately.
Yes. It's
Which-
just like, you didn't even give him a chance to start.
Like, I mentioned this earlier. I really wish they kept Duncan going, Houston, we have an idiot in this
Yes.
one. Because
Oh my goodness.
it makes much more sense.
It does.
Yeah. And then one of Shirley's lines that made me laugh hard was when she was talking about Vaughn. She said he'd play shirts and skins in a game of checkers. That was a good one.
Yes.
And then like this one made me just like question everything. Like it made me laugh because I pictured work. When Vaughn says ultimate frisbee at the senior center, all I can think of is work. Like I just can't see any of the residents where I work doing ultimate frisbee. Like the amount of broken hips and things that would happen.
Oh gosh. Man, everyone's going into assisted living after that.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I just laughed every time I read it or watched that clip because there's no way.
Yeah. And then in the study, like where the like people are like taking notes and watching the TV and stuff, there's a little poster, not a poster, there's a paper in the back that says lost laptop, and most of it's kind of intelligible, at least it was on my screen, but then there's like the words reward kind of all around it. The very bottom it says reward for info 2. Like this person's so desperate they're going to be paying for info. It's little things like that in the background that make me love this show even more.
Yeah. The attention to detail in the background is amazing.
Yes. And the suggestion box in the study had a hidden camera, which I didn't notice until this viewing. This whole time I was like,
really?
Where's the camera at? But then like I think in the DVD version they like cut to that specifically. In the broadcast version they like it's there, but it's not like they don't ever cut to it and they don't ever like have that be the center. But on the DVD version, it was. And I was like, wait, why are they focusing on that? And I realized that's the camera. That's how they could see everything. And I was like, where are they hiding a camera? But then it's like, oh, yeah, suggestion box. Which I'm kind of shocked that Greendale can afford a hidden camera like that.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, making a hidden camera is pretty easy.
Yeah.
Affording a camera that small to fit, that's where the challenge is. And one that can, like, stream for 26 hours, was it?
Yeah.
That's the impressive part.
Yeah, there's no way Greendale could afford something like that. I find it funny, I've just realized this, but most of our, like, funny moments and, like, quotes and stuff are from the B plot. We don't have much from the A plot. I mean, there's some funny stuff in the A plot, like, mostly with Jeff and Shirley. And Pierce just kind of like following them around throughout the episode. And because like whenever they're in the study group, he references like them making the comment about Vaughn's moist hair. In the episode, it was like the previous day when they made that comment. And you could see Pierce way in the background, just kind of listening into them. So he's like keeping track of this stuff, but he thinks it's all about him and Annie's little pouty face.
Yeah, speaking of Pierce, when he hands the poem to Vaughn, he just goes, "Here, read it." that makes me laugh every time.
And everyone else is just kind of like,
everyone is like so uncomfortable, and Pierce just can't pick up on it. It's great.
Yeah, he probably doesn't even know that that's the guy who wrote the poem.
Yeah.
He's probably just like, oh, I'm going to give you this poem to read. What an old white man.
He was so invested in reading it that he didn't hear Vaughn say, "Why is the dinosaur rocking a picture of my poem?"
I guess he didn't.
Yeah.
Another thing, this was, actually this has to do with the poem, because it's when Britta's talking about the poem he gave, and then about Jeff saying, like, not having sex.
Yeah.
And then Britta's like, he gave me something, and Jeff just goes, herpes?
that was great, yeah.
That's a good moment. I had to pause at that one and then like write that down and then go back into the episode. Jeff's cover up for taking a photo of the poem is it's so fake.
Oh, it's so obvious what he's doing.
I am shocked that Britta did not notice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's TV characters, so they might not have as much intelligence as we give them credit for.
Yeah.
But, like, still, like, I feel like we are autistic. We don't understand social stuff. We take stuff, like, as it is a lot of the time, right?
Yeah, very literally. Yeah.
We could see that it was fake. Like, he was making an excuse. And Britta could not. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How do you not notice that? Yeah. Unless she could have just been distracted in thought, too. If we want to fansplain things, she could just be, like, distracted by it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Those
are all my notes.
The ending when they're like imitating all those people.
Oh, the end tag. Yeah.
And then Jeff's like, I can hear you through the glass, morons. And Troy just going, pretend you're asleep.
Yes.
That is an amazing, like, way to get out of trouble. I'm going to start using that.
Yep. And it's so delayed, too. Like, everyone's
It
already
is.
staring at them.
Yeah, it's so... And then I've got, like, little, like, autism, Asperger's, Abed thing.
Ooh, let's hear it.
So, like, Abed... So, people on the spectrum tend to be very loyal to the friends that we have.
Yeah.
Just because growing up, we never really fit in or had a friend group. So once we get one, we do almost anything to keep that friend group together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Abed demonstrates that by sitting there for 26 hours. Now, granted, that's exaggerated for comedic effect in TV.
Yeah. No way am I doing that.
No, absolutely not. Like, I'd sit there for maybe an hour to 2 hours, but after that, I'd be gone.
I wouldn't even go that long.
Mm.
I once sat in a waiting room at a doctor's office. Not the waiting room. I was in the room where the doctor sees
The
you.
examination room?
Yeah, the examination room.
Oh, damn.
The nurse came in. I sat in there for maybe 40 minutes before I was like, you know what? I'm not waiting anymore. And I was like, hey, when's the doctor coming in? It's the only time that's ever happened. But I waited for 40 minutes. I just did my thing on my phone. I was like, oh, 20 minutes has passed. That's odd. They're never this long. And then I was like, I'll give it like 10 more minutes. And then another 20 minutes pass. And I'm like, you know what? Enough's enough. Like,
Yeah, see, I'm too much of an introvert to cause trouble like that.
I had places to be.
So, yeah. See, if I had, like, places to be, I probably would as well.
Yeah.
But
Because, like, I mean,
if it's
I
not
waited.
going to affect... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I waited 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I'm not necessarily introverted. I just don't like conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah,
like, it's hard
that
for me
too.
to speak up for myself sometimes.
Yeah.
But, so, it took me 40 minutes to go and be like, hey, when's the guy showing up? When maybe for someone who's not as, like, maybe someone who's more willing to approach conflict or someone who's not on the spectrum might be more willing to go sooner than 40 minutes to be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But you were saying about Abed.
It just, like, him sitting there for 26 hours shows that loyalty.
Yeah.
Now, granted, like I said earlier, that's obviously exaggerated for comedic effect in TV.
Yes.
But it does show how loyal people on the spectrum tend to be.
Yeah,
Now, obviously, we all have our breaking points,
that's true.
but we tend to be very loyal and very forgiving of our friends
Yes.
because of not having any growing up.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't have any more notes. Did you have more after?
I've just got
Abed's?
one more
Okay.
where it's avoiding people when you're leaving class is so relatable.
Yeah.
Like, I did that all the time. But
Avoiding
that's-
people in general.
In general, yeah.
Like, okay, there are some people that I will like say hello to, or like I'll do the nod for.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
But
yeah,
then,
the
like,
nod.
Yeah, the like downwards nod or the upwards nod, whichever one you do.
Yeah.
Like, there's some people I'll do that for, but like then there are others who like, well, I take it back. I'll do like the nod, or I'll say hello, like if it's in the context that I normally see them.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to see someone at the store that I wasn't like really well acquainted with, or like at the
Yeah.
coffee shop or something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like avoiding them.
Yeah.
And it's not like, and it's not to like offend them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just
No.
like, I'm just gonna do my thing.
Yeah. Like, today, for example, there is a resident who every day needs help with his cell phone.
Oh my
Which-
gosh.
It's understandable because he went from a flip phone to an iPhone X
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever it is. His family bought him the newest iPhone at the time.
Of course they
He
did.
went from a flip phone to that. So I helped him set it up. And so in his mind, I am the only one who knows how it works. So he does not allow anyone else to help him, just me.
Yikes.
Like today, I was going into the main building to do a work order, and I
Yeah.
saw him going into lunch. I hid behind a car for about a minute and a half while he walked inside.
Oh.
Because I could see him holding his phone in like the way he does when there's something wrong.
Oh.
So I was like, we're going to let him put the work order in, and then I'll deal with it later. Because right now I'm not in the mental space to not get annoyed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's fair.
But I had just finished a really stressful work order, and I was exhausted.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I was on my way to lunch myself.
Yeah, and like if you're on your way to your break, it's valid.
Yeah. But, like, if they stop you, you're supposed to stop and help them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I didn't want to deal with that.
So
at
you
that
just
moment.
prevented yourself from being stopped.
Yeah.
No problem with that, I don't think.
Yeah. No. I pulled my phone out, looked like I was checking a message.
There you go.
Yeah.
Doing research on how to fix phones.
Yeah. I had my work phone out, which it sucks because, like, I've grown up with Apple my whole life, right?
Yeah.
So I have an Apple phone personal. My personal phone is Apple. But then my work phone is an Android. It's like flipping back and forth just drives me insane. And I know I sound like a resident saying that.
No, it's fair. They have very different OSs. I was on Android for a few years, and while I liked what I had at the time... I got
really happy you got to Apple because we could send longer videos.
Yeah. Blake still has not converted. Our friend who's like... who we also met at camp. Eventually. See, here's the thing. We got
Messenger, but...
Yeah, but here's the thing. I always had decent Android phones. Like... Mm-hmm. They were always reliable, and they never really gave me many problems. Mm-hmm. But Blake's, our friend Blake, his, or at least the last one he had, was just awful.
So quick introduction. My headphones just said battery low, so they might die here soon. So there might be some awkward silence from me for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So do we want to rate the Meow Meow Bean scale?
Yeah, I have a couple.
And then,
I have a couple pieces of trivia. We covered most of it. Already. The John Lennon, the different versions. There's a map of Mexico hung upside down in the Spanish classroom.
That doesn't surprise me.
And we were talking about how incompetent Professor Duncan is. Mm-hmm. And when he's explaining the Duncan principle, it reveals that he's a little more incompetent than it seems because he's literally quoting terms from Freud. Mm. And that means that he's not even adding anything new to Freudian theory. Mm-hmm. And not coming up with anything original, certainly. And in reality could not get this experiment published or even approved to be conducted because of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Britta being in the Peace Corps. Could not have been a possibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into the Meow Meow Beans before your headphones die. So I want to hear your rating first.
All right. I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Interesting.
I was on the fence between 3 and 4 for a while. When I watched it Tuesday, and made the notes. I put 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then as we were discussing it today, I made the final decision to put a 4. Just because mainly the B plot, Troy and Abed in the experiment.
Yeah.
That's the main reason. It made me laugh so hard the first time I saw it, and it still makes me laugh a lot.
Yeah.
And then like the whole Abed showing the loyalty, that bumped it up to a 4 for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm kind of similar, except I was between a 2 or a 3. Mm. And I ended up deciding to go with 3. I thought I'd go 2, but I think I'm going to give it 3 Meow Meow Beans because like you mentioned, Jeff having like an episode with each character to help like soften him. And I was like, okay, well, I can appreciate this episode more for that. And the B plot too. I love the B plot in this episode.
Yeah. And
the gags are great throughout. It's really just the Jeff, Britta, Vaughn thing that I don't.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what takes this episode down for me. And I think also why I was considering it too is because I was watching the DVD version, which, as we've been discussing, is the inferior version compared to the broadcast version.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I was leaning towards a 2 when I was watching it. But as we've been discussing it, I think I'm going to go with a 3 for this one. And that's the first time we don't have the same rating.
It is.
We were literally talking last week, like, it's going to take forever for us to disagree on the rating, but we did it the next episode.
And then next week, we got a disagreement. Yeah.
Yep. But it's not it's not like an argument.
Yeah, it's nothing like, we're not arguing about any points.
No.
It's just how it felt to either of us, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you were considering 3, I was considering 3, so we were kind of similar, but then we ended up settling on different ones. But we still both liked the episode.
Yeah.
I would give the DVD version a 2, actually. Mm-hmm. I will confidently say that because it does cut out some really good jokes.
I'd give the DVD version a 3.
Okay. Yeah, so DVD version's 1 Meow Meow Bean lower than the broadcast version. Broadcast version is superior. And I hope that's the version that's on Peacock.
Yeah, the Houston We Have an Idiot alone.
Yes.
Bumped it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, so that's all for this week on Wolfe and Brennan in the Morning. So I've yet to do this at the end of our podcast, but I want to shout out our YouTube channel where you can listen to the podcast and subscribe on there. Mm-hmm. And we also have an Instagram you can go follow. That's up and running. It's been up and running since late last week, I think, for us. So in April, we actually made it before we started publishing episodes. But I figured, you know what? By the time we talk about the 4th episode, we better start shouting out like our socials for the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
I need to
follow us on
download for
Instagram. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to
Yeah.
YouTube, keep on listening to the podcast. If you want to rate it, that would be awesome. Helps other people see the show. And tune in next week for when we talk about advanced criminal law. You'll hear us then.
Yeah.
We won't hear you at all, but you'll hear us.